Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. On episode 186, I am joined by Kate Leavell, keynote speaker, facilitator, and best-selling co-author of Stick Together with Jon Gordon. Kate is back with a new book called Superpower, an inspiring story to overcome self-doubt and unleash your authentic greatness. She writes a compelling story of self-love, appreciation, and the power of sharing and connecting with those around us through vulnerability and understanding. Kate is passionate about teaching strategies that turn a powerful vision into reality, whilst unifying teammates around their shared purpose and mission. It's a great episode. It's 186 with Kate Leavell. Enjoy, my friends. Kate, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
Very, very well. I am excited for your book to be read by people. And do you know what? The first thing I do when I read books, I read the dedication page. and I love that you dedicate this new book, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, to your kids. But there's something specific that I love is that you talk about how your kids taught you. And it's so often like in leadership, sometimes we think we need to be teaching the next generation something. And I love that here you are, page one on the dedications, that you're saying thank you for your kids because they've shown you what it's like when they share their superpowers.
Absolutely. I watch them and I think, wow, you guys are so much more secure in who you are and have embraced that so much more than I did when I was growing up. And so as a parent, I was able to guide them, but I didn't have to teach them that. They kind of naturally had it. And so it was it's been a really neat experience and a reminder for me to keep living that way.
It's such wisdom, isn't it? It's so great. I have a 9-year-old son, she's nearly 10, and a 7-year-old daughter, and it's really shown in me just how different they can be in nature. Like my son, quite academic, quite sports. My daughter, on the other hand, quite creative, quite expressive, and it seems on the surface that these things kind of come naturally to them. So it's kind of guided my role as a parent, / coach in the home, is like I need to nurture their nature.
Yeah.
And it's been so powerful. And I guess I'd love to kind of hear a bit more about, your own journey, from what I understand, like a lifelong coach from lacrosse and journeying into leadership. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I didn't see myself doing what I'm doing right now at all. And I think that happens to a lot of us.
Yeah.
I did have a dream to be a writer when I was 8. I sent some poems in. I found an address in the back of a book.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the internet back when the dinosaurs were around. And so I found the address.
It wasn't that long ago.
I know, it really wasn't. It really wasn't, but you can't tell kids that.
Yeah.
I told them I had the first microwave, and they're like, "What?" But I sent in some poems to a publisher thinking I'm going to get published, and I still have it. They actually did write me back, and they sent me a book, and it was really sweet. And it was a brand new editor at the time, who's now the head of like one of the biggest children's publishing companies. So it's really cool. But so I always wanted to be a writer. But I didn't know that I was going to go in this direction with leadership, because honestly, I think we really excel in the areas where we're weak, because we ferociously seek to fill that hole. At least that was true for me. I knew that when I started coaching, which was just something to pour myself into when my kids were little, so I had something for myself, I realized, well, I know this sport inside and out. I grew up in Maryland. I was trained by really great coaches, knowledge-wise. But I didn't know anything about culture. I couldn't even have really explained what that meant in very good terms. And I just thought, well, if I'm nice, then that's going to be enough. And if I'm demanding, that's going to be enough. And that was not the case. That was not enough. So my journey was to just start learning and learning. And one day I was very fortunate, and then I'm walking through an airport, and I started talking to this guy who's telling me that he wrote some books. He sent me some, and his name was Jon Gordon. And, we connected and have worked on a lot of projects ever since then, back in 2013, 14. So that's kind of how I got here. But I coached college lacrosse, high school lacrosse. I coached a lot of my kids' sports, like many other parents. I was in basketball and, soccer and all of those. So really have just been on fields and courts for a long time now. And then I also did business sales. So I did a lot of business to business sales, and it's amazing how those worlds collide. So it's been a really incredible journey.
I love that. Well, those worlds continue to collide. Jon has been a guest on our show twice, and a big fan of the work of Jon. And yeah, I understand you were or are VP of leadership development. So, because I have a background in policing, and policing, when I first started 15 years ago, had a different sense of what leadership was. I think it's changing now. I think it's much more around the types of leadership that you and I talk about. But back then it was rank, it was positional, it was hierarchy, it was how long have you been doing the job, sort of thing. As you've kind of come into this world, what have you learned? What's your take on what leadership is?
Yeah, I had, I call it the old school mentality. That's what I grew up with, which is I'm on a pedestal. You are down here. Not that I'm above you in any way, but that I'm in charge, and that my way stand. This is how we were raised when I was growing up, and this was, don't question it and just do it. And we don't have that anymore. You can't tell people not to question something. They will just walk away. It doesn't work. We have inquisitive kids. I think that's a great thing. They want to think for themselves. They want to understand. They want to be a part of the decision-making process if you want them to celebrate being a part of the outcome, period. And so if you go into it with that mentality of, if I have their buy-in because they feel like they contributed to where we're going, then they will do anything to be a part of the outcome, especially if we show them how great it can be. And the more we build the belief in them that they can accomplish it, the more they will run through walls to get there. It's all about that power of belief, whether they're excelling or they're falling short. If the belief is always there, that there is something inside of you that is going to help you get there, I believe you can get there, whether you're doing it right now or not, then they're going to search high and low for whatever it takes to make that happen. It really is, we talk about, and we hear people talking about all the time how, it's an entitled generation, and it's, kids aren't going to work hard anymore. But the truth is, if you find out how to motivate them, they will work harder than you have ever seen. Look at these kids who are out there killing it. They're making a lot of money. They have huge businesses, and they're like 12. They're not lazy. They just have a different set of values and what is important to them and what feels rewarding to them. And we have to adapt to that. It's not a lazy thing. That's an easy way to write it off as a leader. Oh, they're lazy. I just can't make them do it. That makes us lazy because we're not figuring out how the next generation actually responds, but they do respond.
Yeah, I love the way that you've just phrased that. And I think, you said the word kids, but it's a human thing, isn't it? It's a very much.
Call everyone kids now. I'm getting to that age. Look, those college kids, those NFL kids.
Yeah.
Once I hit 40, everyone was a kid.
But it's something like very human, isn't it? Leadership. And you talk about belief, and I know that's one of your key principles in your book, Stick Together, which you co-wrote with Jon Gordon. And I think one of the things you said at the very start, which is about how your kids have shown you what it is to believe in themselves. And sometimes there's just so many things about life when we journey, it almost knocks that belief out of us. Almost coming back to believing in ourselves is unlearning a lot of the things that we've come to believe about ourselves. I guess, where's your perspective on that? Where's your own personal touch and flavor on that journey?
Yeah, you're going to hear this a lot from me. And if you read Superpower, you're going to see this in there. And that is, are you a giraffe? And that is, and it doesn't have to be a giraffe. It could be any animal. But the idea is that we know who we are with the same conviction that we know who we aren't. And I think a lot of times we go, oh, that's not me. That's not me. And then but someone asks you to define yourself, or, who are you? you can't answer that clearly. And so we can't just know who we're not. We have to know who we are. We have to know who we want to become, because how do you get from point A to point B if you don't know point A or point B?
Yeah.
We end up floating, and then life tells you who you are. Every single day when you wake up, you look at the phone, life tells you how you feel, what other people think of you, what you're going to accomplish today. You get out of bed, you move through the day, and life tells you what your day is going to look like and what's important to you. And anyone who comes to you with a problem tells you what's important to you and what you have to handle. And you can go years like that and turn around and realize, I don't know how I got here. And so intention and belief are so key. So the idea behind the giraffe is really this. If I was to tell you, hey, Ryan, I don't want you to be concerned, but I think you might be turning into a giraffe.
Yeah.
What is the likelihood that you're going to be like, we need to stop this podcast because I need to look in the mirror because I'm actually concerned. This is Kate.
Yeah.
She wrote a book. Like, she knows her stuff. If she thinks I'm a giraffe, more than likely you're going to just be like, she's nuts. I'm not a giraffe, right? Because you're not a giraffe. But what if I said, Ryan, this podcast is terrible. I'm just going to leave. You might actually stop and go, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And it's not because I said it, because you didn't doubt the giraffe part. It has nothing to do with my opinion. It has everything to do with whether or not you had that doubt or that fear already inside of you. I cannot affect you unless you have a doubt there. And that's kind of a scary thought. But on the other hand, it's really empowering, because it means you have 100% control over what you think of yourself, what you believe in yourself, what you believe you can accomplish or become has nothing to do with other people's opinions. And that kind of lie we tell ourselves, that other people are holding us back or other people won't accept us, we're not accepting us. The truth is, it's all from the inside. And I love Damon West and his coffee bean mission, and that you live from the inside out. And it's so powerful and so true. And it really comes down to, what do we believe? And knowing that with the same conviction that you are not a giraffe, that you are not those other fears that you have, so that you can keep moving forward. And that is the power of belief. And we can fuel other people with it. We can transfer it, as Jon Gordon says, leadership is a transfer of belief. And not just within being a leader, a positional leader, but a leader among our teammates, among our coworkers, in our family. How do we fuel each other with belief? And I think that's just really powerful. That's why teams are so powerful.
Hey my friends, thank you for listening to the interview sessions here on YouTube. Did you know that back in 2018, this was the original format for our interview sessions? It wasn't until after a couple of months, when someone said, I'd love to listen to these conversations on my commute, did it become a podcast. And since then, we have been listened to by people in over 130 countries around the world. If you are enjoying this podcast, if you're enjoying this interview, I'd be really grateful if you'd head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. And once you've done that, be sure to take a screenshot, tag us in at Always Better Than Yesterday UK, and I will send you a 20% discount to our merchandise store as a thank you from me to you. Here we go, back to the interview session. And I think, I'm imagining there's a game, isn't there? It's Guess Who, and you and I would sit down with two games and weird guesses, and I
actually really like that game.
and I think the visualization I have when you're talking is that when I start to knock down all those things with who I know that I'm not, the confidence then comes by having those things which I can rely on, those things that are true, and I guess that's why you say in the tagline of your book, Superpower, it's not only overcoming the self-doubt, but it's unleashing your authentic greatness. And so often our authentic greatness is in the things that we think we need to hide from the world, keep back from us, the things that make us different, awkward, quirky. How do you rationalize that? How do you rationalize going, your authentic greatness is in all the things you feel like you want to hide?
The funny kind of ironic thing about this is that we do understand this concept when we're not looking at ourselves, and sometimes when we're just not looking at humankind. So for example, why is an upside down stamp so valuable? Why is a misprinted coin, sought after for hundreds of thousands of dollars when it should be worth 25 cents? It's because it's rare. It's because there's nothing else like it. And because if I have 5 identical blue shirts, I'm going to look at that when I'm cleaning out my closet and go, I don't need all these. I have 5 of the same thing. Being the same is celebrated, but in reality, we don't want the same thing. We want something different. If you hung out with your friends and every single one of your friends said the same things all the time, had all of the exact same opinions, you'd be bored. You would be bored with that group of friends. If every day at work was exactly identically the same, and for some people it is, you have to find ways to make it different, to spice it up, right? And so we understand the concept, but for some reason with ourselves, we think if we blend in and if we're, the same as everybody else, that's the value. And it starts in school. You want to be the cool kid. You want to have what this group has to fit in. And we all kind of know that quirky person in school growing up that was totally different than everyone else, and people love them. And we would wonder, how can they get away with, if I did the same thing they did, they wouldn't accept me. So what is it? And I think I spent most of my life trying to figure that out, because I wanted to be my authentic self, and I'm kind of, a goofball, and I wanted to be the goofball, and be okay with that. But I kind of restrained myself to fit in. And I would look at people like that and go, man, I want to figure out how to do that. And what it came down to was confidence. When you live it authentically, you can't make yourself be like somebody else or be unique. You can't force it. But when you live authentically as yourself, that's the power. That's what makes other people kind of gravitate towards you, because it frees them to also be authentic. It's just this permission that we're giving to other people. And I think that's really the power that comes along with it. And the second you start to be something that you're not, people around you feel that, and it's a miserable life to try to live like something else. It really is. It's very freeing to just, this is me, and I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. Just kind of.
And there's liberation in that, isn't it? I think I have two words, the inside out kind of analogy is, I think when we live from the inside out, we become an expression of who we are. Whereas when we live from the outside in, we become defined by those things. There's almost those things, those earthly, worldly things become a definition of who we are, which takes away our freedom and possibly our authenticity in that.
Well, and we don't always know, we're not always happy with who we are right now, and that's okay. So I don't want to confuse it with saying, I have things that I could probably work on and be better at, or I could just embrace them and put them out there as they are. I think that life is about growth. And the second, kind of like sharks can't stop swimming. I don't know if that's actually a myth or something, but I think sharks have to keep swimming. And we have to keep growing. You're living or dying, or you're growing or you're dying, whatever it is. But we want to know who we're becoming, but we want to live authentically on that journey as we are becoming that person that we want to become. So there is still growth involved in that.
And your book's a fable. And as you go through the fable, there's a bit where the character tries to become the most ordinary kid in school. It's always like, just get through school, be hidden, don't draw any attention. Like, why is that a bad strategy?
Well, at first it's working for him, so he thinks it's great. He thinks it's a great strategy, even though he's miserable. But it does feel like if we don't call attention to ourselves, if I didn't put this book out, and very likely, when I put Stick Together out, there were people that said, oh, this is a kid's book, there's pictures in it, where it's too short of a story. And in order to be authentically ourselves, there is vulnerability in that. There is no way of escaping it. You're going to put yourself out there, and you're going to open yourself to outside opinions, which is why that giraffe part is so important. We have to know who we are. But I think I just lost my train of thought. Where were we?
Well, the strategy of becoming the most ordinary.
Right, ordinary. Yes. Okay, we're good. I got into the giraffe thing in my brain. Okay, yeah. So the idea that we become ordinary and don't stand out feels safe, but it's not fulfilling. And there is safe and there is fulfilling. And I do not believe that you can stand on both islands at the same time. You're going to be one or the other. And there is comfort and there is, stagnation. You don't move. And then there is discomfort and there is growth. And we have to choose, because you're not going to grow in comfort. If you're laying in a hammock somewhere amazing with a beautiful view, the weather is perfect, and it's the most comfortable, hammock you've ever been in, you're not getting up until a thunderstorm comes along, or there's, something you need to go eat because you're comfortable. Discomfort is what makes us grow. And so that vulnerability is really key for us to move forward and feel like we're living, like this is a life, like we're breathing oxygen and we're moving forward. And, I think it's depressing. I think that people find themselves very depressed. And we have a lot of mental health, issues and topics going on right now with having to fit into a mold. And right now with so much discord and not being allowed to express your opinion without being attacked, the cancel culture, everything that's going on, a lot of us will even admit to each other, and you've probably heard people say it, oh, I don't talk about politics, or I don't talk about this. Now I can't even talk about the pandemic. I can't talk about almost anything anymore with friends, even with family, because we get fired up. And so that other topic that's in Superpower is perspective. And it's the idea that if you were to look at an M, or from one angle, it's an M. If you were to look at it from another angle, it's a W. And two people could yell and scream at each other that it's an M or it's a W all day long. And we're doing that. We are literally doing that on social media, in person. And the truth is, no one's wrong. This is my experience. This is my viewpoint, and this is my reality. And this is your experience and your viewpoint and your reality. And we can yell at each other all day and never get anywhere because neither of us are wrong. Or I can invite you to come over to my side and see it. And then I can offer to come over to your side and say, wow, yeah, from over here, it's this. And that's just that idea of perspective is so important.
And that's it, because my desire to be right is going to blind my ability to be relational.
Yeah. And you might be right. That's the
thing. Exactly.
What if they're right too? That doesn't work.
It's a W, I'm telling you.
Right. It's a 6, it's a 9, it's a W, it's an M. The optical illusions. You see an optical illusion, and the first picture you see is the old lady, and the other picture you see is the hourglass or whatever the other side of it is. But
the young lady,
but it's still we're both seeing from our own perspective. And the beauty of being inimitable, which pops up a lot. And when I read the audiobook, I realized why I shouldn't have used that word so many times, because I had to keep saying inimitable without messing it up. But the idea of being inimitable, which is so good or unusual that it is impossible to be copied, is so key, in that I have a different experience, life, everything just as unique as my fingerprint. Nobody will see things exactly the way that I do, even if they live their life right next to me. We're still going to have a different experience. And the more people I can talk to and learn their experiences, the more really three-dimensional the world becomes. And who wouldn't want to see the world that we're living in and understand it? Why would we want to walk through life and only see one view that we share with nobody? And that's the power of that connection.
I love that. Who is the original Mr. Inimitable?
The original Mr. Inimitable. Well, the book idea kind of came along from my own personal struggle of just self-acceptance. It's something that we all go through, and learning to put my work out there and go, okay, be nice. But I did, as I started speaking, I met, a lot of people online and through Twitter, and I met Trent through Twitter and his story over at Minneapolis North, and what him and Coach McKenzie were doing with this basketball team, which was phenomenal. A school that was supposed to be closed down. And, it was in the inner city in Minneapolis, where, there's just been so much going on. I actually lived in uptown Minneapolis before I moved down to Florida. And really hard place for these kids to grow up. And they weren't finishing high school. They were failing out. And they took over this basketball program. And every single kid, 100% of them, graduated on time and went on to a 2-year or 4-year college to play basketball. This is powerful what they were doing. And then I got to know him a little bit and realized, this guy is really unique. He loves, you'll see some similarities here. He loves Frank Sinatra. That was, one of his things. And, kind of old school, old cars and that sort of thing. So he was so unique, and his favorite word is inimitable. It's actually on his license plate. And I'd never heard the word before. He heard it in the play Hamilton. And so there's a song that says, I am inimitable. So he taught me that word, and I was like, wow, that is a really cool word. I love that word. What am I want to do something with that, because that's kind of this journey I'm going through. And the idea that someone says, you don't fit in, you're not like us, and being able to look at them and be like, wow, thank you. Thank you for thinking that I am so unique, that I stick out, because when I go for a job, I hope I stick out. And, when I put a book out there, I hope that it stands out. I hope it doesn't fit in with the rest of the ones on the shelf. When I come on your podcast, I hope I stand out. I hope you remember me. And I hope that I can make that a positive experience, because there's a bad way to be remembered. But the idea of being inimitable and not fitting in as being a superpower, and then figuring out what those traits are that make you who you are, that unique fingerprint that you leave on this world, is incredible. And I'm like, I need to make a story about this. And so that's where it came from. So he is the original Mr. Inimitable. And I was so excited to share the story with him as I wrote it. It was really fun.
And I listened to you on Jon's Positive You podcast, and you say these words at the very end. It's like, we all have the ability to make an inimitable impact, but the question is, are you free to live it? And are we free to release it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can hire a temp at a job to, while you're out sick. And I used to be a temp. I don't think I was very good. I was like 19. You can hire a temp to come in, and you give them check boxes. Okay. You need to go through these files. You need to, whatever it is you need to do for the day. And you can technically get those things done. So why are people so excited to get the original person back when that temp is done? It's because you are irreplaceable when you live freely and authentically as yourself, because you are inimitable, because no one can copy you. No one can do what you do in the way that you do it, with the same heart, with the same personality, with the same passion, with the same flair, care, whatever it is that you do, that same experience or empathy, whatever it is that you bring to your position, which you only bring if you are living as your authentic self. If you're trying to be the same as everyone else, you make yourself replaceable, because you're not bringing anything extra and nothing special, right? So bring your authentic self, and you can't be replaced. And that is how you unleash, that inner authentic greatness that you have. And that's really key, is to remember that, you really are special. You really do have something to share with the world. And when you have a team or an organization or a company, what do you bring that no one else brings? If you were to disappear from the market, if you were to disappear from your conference, your sports conference, what would be missing? And if the answer is nothing, then your team has not figured out what your authentic greatness is yet. And the more, it comes down to matchups, right? In sports, the more unique your team is, and you celebrate it, and you actually utilize those unique skills, the harder it is for anyone else to match up against you. And now it's a competitive advantage.
I understand that this is more than a book, and I know that you have a heart, that this is a movement. And I think I have a real big heart for like legacy and next generation. And I have this belief that school system's failing us, or failing our, I imagine a school system that equips young people with an understanding of everything you talk about in Superpower. That, imagine how the world would be different if we received in our workplaces a generation of young human beings who were inimitable.
Yeah. And there is a piece, in the story, which I think I can share without giving too much away, but there's a piece in the story where Trent, the main character, is trying to figure out why he feels so connected to his class, his brand new class, so quickly. And the teacher is explaining to him, that he's gotten to know them on a deeper level because of the activities that the teacher has put forth, and because of the way that the teacher really puts it out as, this is a celebration to share who you are, and we appreciate who you are. And it's important that we all appreciate each other for these, uniquenesses, that even if you have something that, normally you would hide, and there's one girl that has, she's got a pimple and things like that, things that you just, I don't want anyone to see this because it's an imperfection. is that people don't see it. They don't see your imperfection. All they see is all of the great, unique pieces that make up you. And so if you have a weird trait or something, that you think is different than other people, people just see it as a part of the person that they love and appreciate. They don't see it as a flaw. And I think that we're just taught that you look at a perfect picture that we can now Photoshop to, what end, and we see that as perfection. And perfection is just you as yourself. And we love all those pieces. And think of somebody that you love.
Yeah.
And just kind of go down even, I think I go back to the physical feature so much because I think this is what really is impacting young people, because we can take a picture. I'm so glad we couldn't do this when I was growing up, and you can pinch it and you can zoom in on every flaw. Oh, my smile didn't come up at the little curve. And we would have never looked at that when I was growing up because you couldn't see those details. And so now we look at these flaws and we really stress about them. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of people trying to fix a lot of things because we feel like, we don't fit in. I mean, even I have a Zoom filter, it's great. We have all these things to try to make ourselves look better. And the truth is, if you think about somebody that you really love, and you think about if they match the exact perfect that we are holding ourselves as a standard, they probably don't fit it. And does that impact you? Does it impact how you think of them? Would you recognize them if they fixed themselves? When you see someone with a lot of plastic surgery, don't you kind of go, oh, wow, it doesn't look like them anymore? We lose that authenticity of who they are. And we have to get back to celebrating that.
I've long held the belief that it's not success that inspires people. It's the vulnerability, the adversity, the overcoming of that adversity that truly inspires people. Because it's very easy, right? Look back and go, because publicly there's a lot of adornment for someone like Tom Brady, right? Very, very successful, one of the greatest of all time. But then if we were to have a conversation with people in private, oh yeah, well, that's Tom Brady. He's la la la.
Right.
Whereas in our local communities, when we hear a story about someone that's overcoming the loss of, someone, or we have this admiration for them and their character and their resolve and their grit and their determination. But I don't think we receive that back as a ripple effect. I don't think we understand, because maybe as a society, we don't tell each other what we appreciate in others as often and as readily as we might do celebrity culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes down to connection.
Right.
We're not connected to a celebrity. We are connected to someone that we see on a daily basis, hopefully. Although in a electronically connected world, we are less connected than ever with the people, even in our house. Even we've gotten to this point where we use communication to give and take information. We've become transactional in our lives, and adding in things where we learn more about each other has become expendable. It's like, well, this is the first thing I'm going to cross off my list because it isn't measurable. I can't put it on a list and check it off and say, this is an achievement. This is something that I've done. And we are very achievement focused. I've seen it in the sports world, and that's where I started writing, was, kind of this failure of losing these rec teams and turning into, our kids into a marketing business has been, just a rough journey on them, but it is turning us into transactional people. And when we can get back to connection as being the priority, and I teach this to coaches all the time, new coaches that come in, is yes, it may feel like if you spend the first 2 weeks really getting to know your athletes and getting them to get to know each other and their stories and who they are behind the scenes and things they wouldn't normally know, that feels like a waste of time because you need to learn drills. But on the other hand, when they're that connected, if you, teach them a skill, their learning curve is going to be steeper than you've ever seen because they are now in a receptive environment. They're not walled up, closed off, worried about if people are judging them. They're encouraging each other. They truly, truly care about each other. So you're not wasting your time policing the whole season and trying to enforce rules. Just like in Stick Together, right? And you say a team with a lot of love doesn't need a lot of rules. A team that's truly, truly connected isn't worried about whether or not they care about that consequence or not. They're worried about, I don't want to let my teammates down, or somebody believes in me and I'm not going to let them down. It just becomes a different environment. So that connection is so important. And I think we have to get back to that. And that's a running theme within Superpower as well.
Yeah. Just this weekend in the women's football, soccer, England won their first major championship, and it was the women that brought it home. We for so many years the men, oh, he's coming home. There
Right.
hasn't.
Yep. Yep.
We came close, but it's not. And the women have showed up and they brought it home.
Love it.
And I listen very closely to post-match interviews because I like to get an understanding of leadership in the dressing room and the culture. And one of the players said that their head coach just in the very early days just got them together like almost like retreat campfire type environment, and they just shared stories of connection, getting to know the players beyond the game, and the words that I kept hearing come up was just love and trust, and and it's funny, isn't it, because we wouldn't associate that with or business. How do we do that in business, because work is work.
Yes.
But if we want the best teams and the best performance, then we have to start embracing the whole of the humans that work through the door.
Yeah. When I work with business teams, and I've worked with large corporations all the way down to, the smaller family-owned businesses. And, when you put them in a room, a lot of them don't want to be there to start with. They don't, this isn't productive. They have other things that they're stressed out about doing. But when they leave after going through a workshop, you can just see, the connections that have grown in that short amount of time, where they were able to get to know each other on a deeper level and realize, we tend to fill in the blanks when we don't. Our brain helps us out a lot. If we don't know what somebody's thinking about us, if we don't know how we're perceived, we will fill in the blanks with what we know from our past. So our biased opinion, and it may have nothing to do with the people in that room. It could be, have to do with the people that were in our household or whatever growing up, or our last job. But when we give people an opportunity to get to know each other on a deeper level, it changes everything. And I've done it with athletic teams where, they went from not winning a game to they have this, couple of hours, 2 hours even, and they turn around and they never lose again the rest of the season. And all it was that they were fighting against each other instead of fighting for each other, because they didn't know who they were fighting for, and they were fighting against a perceived idea of people that was wrong.
Yeah.
And that person can never become the person that they need to be in your eyes if you've decided who they are, if you have that belief system already in place. So in business, it's the same thing. How do I connect and fight for, in this environment where we are so stressed out, where things are constantly changing, where we're trying to also deal with the stress and the issues at home when we come into work? How do we do that if we don't feel like we're a part of a team, and that we just have these transactional people every day that are here? Because you can't do it if you don't have the support of your teammates.
Yeah.
And if you're always being reactive, you can't focus on the relationship. You can't focus on the tasks at hand. And I feel like when you don't know what's going to come from somebody all the time, you're always reactive. And that just comes from not building that relationship.
And this is it, this stuff, like I looked during the pandemic, it's like you can see the teams that have done this stuff in the build up to it, because when life squeezes, when the pressure hits, like the adversity hits, then we get to see, you can't be doing this stuff in the middle of the crises. You have to prepare for it. And and
that's
I think
the tell, right, of a great team, is because everybody can look great when you're winning.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually though, in my original book, which was Confessions of an Imperfect Coach, I write about how we were winning every single game, but we still got to a point where it was a mess, because winning only works for so long. Eventually those relationships are going to come out, and the people who are carrying everything and the people who aren't doing their, there's going to be a divide of who's doing what, and eventually it crumbles. But it's just really, really powerful to have all those, those connections in from the beginning, and pressure exposes everything. If you don't have the hard conversations when you want to, you will have them. You can't avoid them. You're going to have them. So everyone should just go ahead and accept it now. You could fight me if you want, but I promise you the hard conversations are coming, and you choose. Would you like to have them now when you have to carve out the time, or would you like to have them in a crisis when time is of the essence, when you can't afford to lose people, when you can't afford to lose energy on this. And I still think people think there's a third category of we just won't have it, or we'll do it later and it'll work out. And you can hold on to that
That's a
until it happens.
fallacy. Yeah,
But eventually it's coming for you.
that was
Okay.
that was the policing fallacy. Oh, we'll do that when we're less busy, which never happened.
So there's a curtain, and this is kind of the analogy I use if people are having trouble grasping this. Okay, so as a leader, you can close the curtain, and this was the old school thing, which was if you have something going on at home, you have drama, especially coaching girls, you get into a fight with your boyfriend, whatever. I like leave that at home. Don't bring it to the field, because people would come upset and we wanted to practice or have a game, and there was always something that people brought. High school kids, there's always something going on, and so the old school way was leave it at home. Draw the curtain. Oh, there's drama between you and another player. You're angry. Handle it on your own. Like, come here for the sport. So we close the curtain. And behind the curtain, there's just this, like, have you seen Little Shop of Horrors? Like the plant is it's just growing and growing and growing. And you might peek in there and be like, ugh, and shut the curtain again. Don't bring that here. But eventually that thing is growing legs. It's going to open the curtain. It's coming for you. You can put up a wall. It's going to bust down the wall. You have to address it when it's small. And the only way you're going to address it is being very real and not saying, everybody show up being positive, put on a happy face. Oh, you're unhappy? Well, let's not talk about that, because we need to stay positive here. And when people say stay positive, and this was my old idea of stay positive, I'm a realist, was let's pretend everything's fine, or let's just stuff it and keep going because this is how it is. There is a piece of being positive where we have to acknowledge where we are. We have to be real. We have to have hard conversations. The positive part comes in the future, the belief. Everything goes back to belief. I truly believe everything goes back to belief, right? If we believe that we have what it takes, that the mission matters, that we have a driving purpose, if we believe that this group, is all in on this, then the future is going to be amazing. So you have to have a vision or a future that is worthy of fighting for. And you have to believe that you truly can get there. So we can sit around and talk about, here's all the things that are not going well right now, but now we're going to talk about where we're going. And like I said, that positivity comes in the belief that you will conquer anything that's in your way, and that anything that's in your way is worthy of whatever it's going to take to conquer it, to get there. We can't see the outcome if we don't define it. And if we believe whatever's on the other side of this obstacle or this wall, even if we can't see it, is amazing, it's Disney World, like that's where we're going, it's not a garbage dump, then we're all scaling that wall, and we're going to find a way to get there.
I love that. Are you a fan of Ted Lasso?
Yes, I am. I didn't watch it for a long time, and then actually Trent was like, you have to watch it. I can't believe you're not watching this. And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch it. And then I was like, darn it, I really like it.
Yeah. So who's your favorite character?
Oh gosh. I'm Ted. I love Ted, like, like, what was it? Have a memory of a goldfish, he's so great. And you know what? He is so authentically himself. He's quirky, he's goofy. And when he says things that people are like, huh, he's not wondering, how do they think about what I just said? He's just, this is the way that I think. And you know what? So many times he's right in what he's telling them. And I love that. I love that so much.
I love that, his energy, his positivity, his desire to bring out the best in there. And then season 2, we see a real vulnerable side to him, which is again just the power of that. Humans, reminding us that human beings, we take all of ourselves wherever we go.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but we're not just humans, we're a human being, meaning we're in the midst of living and growing, and we're going to have messy lives. And if you took out the mess, there's so much beauty that came on the other side of the mess, and there's so much appreciation that comes through living it. And so, we embrace that as human beings. And what I love so much about Ted Lasso, in that he is so vulnerable in the second season. And yet he still has that mindset. And it's, this is a wake-up call that you don't have to have a perfect life to have that kind of mindset. And people look at Jon Gordon, and you see his stuff going on, and you think, wow, what a great life. And you look at any of these celebrities and you think, oh wow, what a great life. And what we forget is that everyone is struggling, and some people are struggling a lot more than others, yet look, great on the surface. So that mindset isn't there because life is great. That mindset is there because we need it to get through everything that's in front of us. And when we use that mindset, we didn't do it in vain. I didn't struggle in vain. Like, I got a lesson out of this, and I survived it, and I have something now, that inimitable impact, right? Every one of us has, and I did a podcast with a lot of people on this inimitable impact. Everyone has a moment that impacted their life that they could have shut down and quit, or defined it as something that was going to hold them back, or they could make the choice. They're at a crossroads. They could make the choice to say, this is hard. This is going to teach me something. I can't change it. I don't want this. I would do anything if I could reverse it, but I can't. So what can I do with it? And whatever they learned from that lesson, because they made the choice to get through it and to fight for it, they now have an impact that they can make on everyone else, a lesson that they can pass along that no one else can teach. And if we go along our life and the only thing we did was learn the lesson, we wasted it. We wasted it. And some people may not like that, and they think, well, I learned something from that. Well, you wasted it. If you didn't pass it on to somebody else, then it was for nothing. That's the second half of it. That is the gift is leaving the impact and passing that along to somebody else. And I believe that's why we're charged to get through these struggles.
I love that. You talked recently about the inimitable impact is like a fingerprint you leave on people. I have a word for that here at Always Better Than Yesterday. It's called Heartprint. I believe that the heartprint of our interactions with people can be better, can be worse, can be positive, can be negative. Kate, what's your heartprint?
I just know that there are so many times in my life where I doubted my ability to get through something, my ability to go for something. It was just doubt, so much doubt. And I remember, just getting to this point where I would just close my eyes and go, okay, go, just like if you're jumping off the high dive and you're just like, I'm terrified, but at this point, I'm just going to go, and trying to learn tools on how to get through that. And all the way back to 2014, I had a pulmonary embolism after my shoulder surgery. And it was one of the, kind of ironically, one of the biggest fears I had was having this blood clot, because my grandmother died before I was born from a blood clot. And so I had heard that story and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, that sounds scary. And it is, very scary, bad odds when you get blood clots floating around your body. And I remember being so angry because the shoulder surgery that I got was, this nagging shoulder all the time. And I wanted to get it fixed so that I could not have pain when I did all my favorite activities. I loved mountain biking. I coached in Colorado for a while, and I was snowboarding and skiing and just always doing active stuff. And so the shoulder surgery was going to make that all better. I was excited. And instead, what I ended up with was a blood clot, blood thinners, and they said no more sports, no more coaching. I was just, everything that I wanted and loved was being pulled away. And, and then I was having all these complications, and I was constantly in the hospital, and I was so angry that I didn't take the time to realize I'm out of the 1 in 4 with a pulmonary embolism die instantly. And I never stopped and celebrated being one of the 3 that survived it. And I woke up one morning and realized I shouldn't even be here. Like, I might not have even had this day. How could I have not stopped and celebrated just waking up and having the opportunity to live my life? It was a complete perspective change. And I'm looking around at so many people who are angry or who are struggling or who feel like they're having things taken away. And I thought, if I can impact anyone, just one person, because it was life-changing for me. If I can give one person that gift of getting their life back because their perspective changes, then that's what I'm going to do. And then I realized that on the scale that I could do this, through all of the avenues that have been opened up for me in order to keep living this, is is just so powerful. And I thought, I got to keep going, and I remember as a teen, I struggled so much with that self-doubt and with that perspective shift, and always kind of thinking things were going to go wrong, which is, you look for it, you find it, right? And so I thought, wow, I can really impact teens now. And I love that Superpower and Stick Together. Really, you could be 10, you can be 110. That's kind of what I've been saying here. And you're going to be able to read this book, and you're going to be able to walk away and say, man, I've been Trent before, or I wish I had that teacher. How can I be that for somebody else?
Powerful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing that. And where can people connect with you? Where can they find out more about your great work?
Yeah, they can go to my website. So kateleavell.com is probably the easiest place, or kate@kateleavell.com. You can shoot me an email. You can find me over on Twitter. And I always tell people you could find me on Instagram, but I hope you like pictures of dogs, because for the most part, that's what ends up there is my adorable one-eyed Bernie doodle. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so track me down. I love, getting a chance to work with businesses, teams, individuals on, either workshops or talks. And just my goal is that in our time together, whatever it is, that at the end of it, there's at least one tiny perspective shift that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and go, something's different. Something is powerfully different, even if it's something small. And that's what I live by. And that's why I keep doing this work.
I love that. The thing about Heartprint is that it creates possibility, infinite possibility. In some way, as a result of your Heartprint, something is now possible for someone else to do something different, which is infinite. The ripple effect of that blows my mind. I hope that you continue to get the wave back of your ripple effect, just to continue to energize you, keep you in that belief in what you do and is what you're being needed. And just be grateful and appreciative if you'd leave us with a final thought from your good self.
Absolutely. Man, I think really the most important thing is that from here on out, anything that you walk into, if you have that moment of, I'm not enough, I don't know if I can accomplish this. I don't know if I look like the people who've done this before me. The second you start thinking that, to step back, to make a list of everything about you that nobody else has, realize how different you are, and then understand that you are the rare coin. You are the upside down stamp. You are actually priceless. You belong in the inimitable museum of history, which you will learn about when you read the book. And to go forward and know that you are not a giraffe. You are powerful as your authentic self. And if you walk in with anything else, you are robbing yourself, and you're robbing the people around you of everything that you can be and that you really, truly are.
Kate, thank you so much for your time. Really grateful to have you on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for putting this podcast out and leaving your Heartprint. I think that's amazing.
Much love. Thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below, some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday, where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.